Welcome to My Modern Myth on a special edition of Rest Rounds, where we dig deeper into this world of jiu-jitsu specifically. My Modern Myth is, using our mind and body to write the best life story possible. One of the ways we do that is through jiu-jitsu, through triathlon, through different sports. But there's been a really strong pull towards jiu-jitsu for me in this part of my journey, and meeting people like this guy. Who are you? You just popped in here.
I'm Billy. Nice to meet you guys. Billy Sherman.
Right on. So I met him through Freeform when I started last year, and he's been doing jiu-jitsu for a while. I think a 7th degree white belt. Is that accurate?
Yeah, practically. I put on the 5th stripe, and my coach Andy just wanted to kill me about that.
We're going to talk about it, but getting up to that, I just want to kind of turn it over to you to kind of share, maybe initially what got you into the sport.
Yeah, certainly. So it was kind of an interesting thing. I always was interested in martial arts ever since I was a child. I did a little bit of boxing, and I was really into that for a while. Then, of course, everybody did like kung fu and karate, and there was the whole craze. But I remember jiu-jitsu being a thing with my brother, and he was really into it when he was about 20. But I never went down like that rabbit hole. I never gave myself that opportunity. And when I was, so originally I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii, and there's tons of jiu-jitsu gyms all over the island. And I would see these guys, putting on the gi and just start wrestling each other and choking each other. And I was always fascinated by it, but I never was like, oh, I want to go in there and see what I got. It didn't happen until I was about 27. I was about 27 years old. And I had a good friend of mine named Kyle, who he's a purple belt right now. He also lives in Hawaii. And if it wasn't for him, I probably would have never really done jiu-jitsu. He really just opened up the portal for me and just said, hey, let's just give it a shot and see what happens. And he was at a very small gym in Honolulu called Workshop. It's like a tiny little, just very small gym, and you can only work ground stuff. There's no like takedowns or anything like that. But for me, that was great because I just wanted to dip my toe in the water, and I just wanted to see what this was about. And I had no prior experience to wrestling or grappling of any sort. I was just sure little striking stuff, but that's completely different ball game. And before I was doing a lot of weightlifting, I was doing a lot of like CrossFit and stuff, push-ups and stuff. So I was conditioned well to handle this kind of workout. So that wasn't the problem. The problem was I was just so like shocked at how easy people could just take my back and choke me and put me in these weird pretzel-like positions. And and then something was happening where I was getting my ass kicked a lot, and I was just like, I kind of want to keep going. Like it's this weird, like something's in your brain that's like, I could totally get this. And then you have another student come in and he might be just as fresh as you. And then you start getting some moves that he didn't see from the week before. He starts trying that on him and he's like, well, what is this? And then that creates some stuff. So I got into jiu-jitsu. It was about 2019, just before the pandemic was about to really kick off. And I think I spent about 6 months doing jiu-jitsu. My black belt instructor was this guy, Larry Hope, who also still lives in Hawaii, a very talented individual. He trained under Danaher, like the whole Danaher legacy. So he knows Gordon and Craig Jones and all those guys. He's all from that lineage. And he's scary, man. His wrist locks are they're lethal. I am absolutely terrified of him, but he's a gentle spirit. He's a kind man. He actually gave me a really extensive like free pass situation where he said, hey, don't worry about paying a membership for right now. You're really raw. You don't know anything. And we're just going to try and build you up, And I was so thankful that it wasn't like here, pay this. It was more like just come train. You're just another body that we can work on. It was like, oh, okay, I'm learning and they're using me for their moves. Like it was a big learning experience. So about 6 months into it, and then the pandemic happened, and they shut down the whole island, and I could not train or work out or go to the beach. So it was challenging, and I had to leave. I went through a really dark period during the pandemic. I'm sure a lot of us did,
Sure.
and a lot of us had faced like relationship stuff going on or work stuff. You lost work, and for me, it was that those two things and jujitsu because I was so fresh and it was like a new
Mm.
love for me.
Yeah.
It was like a new I'm really into this, and then all of a sudden, pandemic happens. Now I'm out. So from 2020 until the beginning of 2021, I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu, and it really I was just working and trying to do whatever I could for myself, but it sucked because I didn't know anybody. And then when I finally moved here to Milwaukee in 2020 of June, I was just working and really just nose to the grindstone kind of thing. And then finally, I just decided in February of 2021, I was like, I need to get back in there. And I saw this gym, Neutral Ground, which was right down the street from where I lived on Knapp Street in Milwaukee. And I was in love with it. I was like, oh, great, this is another opportunity. And I think the thing that kept me going, especially, was like the fact that I went in there and I already had a little bit of
Yeah.
experience, from Hawaii.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't like I went in there completely raw. I had some nogi, I had some gi, and my sensei at the time, John Friedland, he saw that in me and he immediately gave me two stripes right away. And I was like,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
wow, okay. He's like, I know you got some experience, and I was like, I felt really good about that,
Yeah.
So I felt like I was like, okay, I see, I got a couple moves,
Mhm.
and then the community, I'm sure you can attest to this, but the
Sure.
community, when you connect with people and they're just about that life, they vibe. Maybe there's an age difference, maybe there's you guys are different work lives, different. You could be a doctor, I could be a plumber, or whatever. But we
Mhm.
just somehow find this thing. It's like we both love this thing together, and maybe we would have never hung out if it wasn't for this thing.
Yep.
But I'm so glad that we are hanging out.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. This sport where you mentioned earlier, it's. I tell some people about it, and they're like, "That's great for you. I can never do it. I can't deal with sweaty people. I can't deal with feet in my face. I can't deal
yeah,
with the choking and the hugging and the ground. And I get it. It is a mentality, but I think there's probably more to it that makes people quit because in the freeform time, I saw probably I don't know, in a month I saw about 10 new students and none of them stayed. And then I saw like 5 new students and one of them stayed.
hmm
And I had my own struggles with it. But there's like this, I think it's not just a sport that limits you. It's not like everyone can do this sport. I get that. But it's kind of like people fall in love with it and they get addicted, right? But I think there's a lot of people that are practitioners that are hobbyists,
hmm
and it is that community that brings them back. But I think there's probably a lot of stuff that mistakes we make as practitioners that make us quit in the first month. I would say that first month was a pretty trying period of time for me. The first year
hmm
has
hmm
been a challenge of, for me personally, why am I going to keep doing this sport? I don't know what, if you look at your first year, excluding pandemic and stuff, like if you're accumulating a year of training, did you see stuff that was like threatening your continuation with the sport?
Absolutely. For me, I'm a pretty prideful person.
Mm.
I've got a ton of pride, and it's hard for me to swallow my pride sometimes. It was my first competition.
Ooh.
I went to a Naga, which I was one of your first competitions, right?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Naga.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So my first competition was a Naga. Now keep in mind, I was maybe at the time 3 months in, maybe 4 months in. This was in Hawaii, and I was just like, hey, my buddy Kyle was like, let's just do a competition. My buddy Kyle's purple belt. His division is like he's like 135 pounds, skinny little guy, and
Yeah.
he's going up against other skinny little purple belt guys. And then me, I'm like kind of husky, going up against in my 20s, but
Yeah.
husky guy in the husky guy competition with the other white belts, and I got annihilated because it's single elimination, right?
Yep.
So I got there was this guy. He just took me down. He just instant takedown. I just
Right.
froze. Their first competition for me, other people might have better experience, but I was my first competition. I froze. It was like a gunshot went off, and I
Mm.
was like, I don't know what's happening, and I couldn't move. And he just took me down, and then he got me in an arm triangle,
Mm.
and I just like didn't know how to get out of it because I was just so what is this? So I'm like, I don't know how to get out of this, and I'm wiggling back and forth trying to
Yeah.
get out. I'm like, all right, I'm done. Screw this, and I just tapped. After losing, it was about a minute. I swear, it's like a minute 30 seconds or something like it. Something really embarrassing like that. After losing, it was my first comp. Going home, you know, not even like let's go get some Chinese takeout. It's just go home, you know. And I'm in my room and I'm crying, I'm weeping a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because it hurts. It hurts your pride.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, I lost. Like, but my buddy Kyle comes in and he sees me and he's like, because we were roommates, and he's like, man, I know you feel like you lost and everything sucks, but just remember, Monday we're going to be right back in there. We're going to train. Had he had not said that,
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have said, "Screw jiu-jitsu, I'm done."
Yeah.
I had a friend that was so positive, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
absolutely 100% fortunate to have him like push me, and I pushed him too in certain ways in his life. But he was definitely just like, "Hey, let's dust that off. Put the gi in the wash. Let's get some protein shakes." And it was just like I needed you to just
Yeah.
be my hype man, and he was, and he did a great job at that. And then I just kind of continued that momentum. So I'd say for me, definitely the thing about like wanting to quit kind of thing, it's pride. You lose a
Yeah.
comp. I beat JJF. When I lost that comp, I was like, man, I didn't put my best effort in there, and there was some high emotions. There was some high emotions of wanting to be like, I
Yeah.
think I'm done. I think this is it.
Yep.
But then you gotta fight through that.
Yeah, you do. Well, and that's I think it was funny you mentioned embarrassing at a minute and 38. Well, I got tapped out in 10 seconds
Yeah.
in the finals match in Nogi, which it's kind of funny. I I remember someone telling me, again, relationships, that I signed up for my first comp. I've taken one Nogi class, but I signed up for both divisions, ski and Nogi, just because I wanted to. And this guy said, you need to go out there one time and be unprepared and do well. You need to go out there and be unprepared and get your ass kicked. You need to go out there prepared and do well, and you need to go out there and be prepared and get your ass kicked. You need all of those experiences. So I was like, okay, this, we'll see how it goes. And I went unprepared, went against the first guy was a 10th planet guy. And I was like, in Nogi, really, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
But I won. I pressured him and I had no moves. It was very boring. It's Matt, our coach, he said, get on top, stay on top, because he was like, what's your game? And I'm like, I got nothing. Okay, get on top, stay on top. So
Yeah,
like, okay. Yeah. And so I got like 6 points and won in the
nice
match.
That's very good.
Yeah, and it was a great match, from that perspective. I was proud of myself. And then I get to the finals and it's this dude who is he's clearly a wrestler, just muscle, and I'm like, shit. And he just snaps me down, jumps guillotine, bam, done. Like my jaw is still messed up. Ooh. I had like 2 lacerations on my tongue, so he cut my tongue on both sides, and and so I'm like, that's my worst fear is getting submitted in 10 seconds, and I was proud of myself because I got to deal with that. I've dealt with stuff for a long time with like that ego that you're talking about, and my worst fear came true, and I'm like, good, got that out of the way. Right. And then I faced him in the gi finals, the same guy, and I got foolish. I could have won that match, and I felt so good going in my world, like this is what I've trained for 6 months is gi, and was able to be competitive, where his coach came up to me and like said, that was really nice, like what you did. And that felt, I lost to him, but I felt really good because I got my face wiped the floor, with this guy just smoked me. And then I almost pulled it off against him. So to go against someone and get just dominated in 10 seconds and then to almost win the next match with him, I mean, that to me, that's like this marker of growth immediately that I got to have that was incredibly intoxicating to a certain degree. It could have gone differently, like your experience. But again, that coach was my friend. No, he wasn't my friend. He was a fellow jiu-jitsu practitioner, and there's a lot of respect in that world. So to your point, the friendships I've made, yourself included, have been the best surprise, I'll say. You had said that that's how you stayed in, but do you find still that through all of the adversity that you've experienced, because you've been training for a little while now, and there's setbacks, there's micro injuries, there's illness, there's time off the mat, there's surges forward, is it the relationships that continue to carry, or is there other elements that are really helping you continue this fight?
It's really a bit of both. So you're talking about time off the mat right now. I'm dealing with a little bit of a shoulder injury right now, so I've spent about a week off, and I'm mitigating my shoulder because in my last few competitions I had, the guy Kimura'd me a little too much,
Mm.
and I still won, but the fact that I was such a stubborn,
Yeah.
I got in there. Okay, well, I'm going to take you down, and he
Mm-hmm.
still got the Kimura, and I do this thing where I undo my arm to get into side control, and I'm just hurting
Yeah.
myself even more. So, yeah, I'd say like last night, I'm hanging out with the guys from the gym. There's about 7 of us. These are all people I've met from the gym, and I haven't been there for a week, but it's not like I'm dissipated. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still very much connected with these folks. And so I would say on one side of that, it's the friendships, the bonds, the relationships that you make with people, because those do matter. Um, Even if you are like a super introverted person, there is somebody in the gym that you will connect with. There is somebody there that you'll be like, nah, this guy's or this girl's, whoever it is, a person I just like to be around, and they're cool.
Yeah.
And on the other end of that spectrum for me is I really love the progress. Like I like the idea of, even if whether it's slow, fast, whatever, the idea that I am somehow getting better.
Yeah.
That keeps me. It's like for like I was a big gamer. I was a big video game kid, and so it's like getting to the next level type of thing.
Sure.
For me, maybe it's the stripe on your belt. Maybe it's a new belt. Maybe it's a move that I've been practicing, and like, man, back in February I was terrible at it, but this February I'm like, wow, I've made some
Mm-hmm.
progress with this move, this one
Yeah.
move. It's that stuff
Yeah.
that really keeps me in, because I can see that I'm starting to get better, and I can see that things are starting to kind of become a better picture, if you will.
Sure.
And you could also argue the long game. Everybody wants to, well, I want to be this badass blue belt who just taps everybody at 80 cc, or hey, I want to be a black belt and I want to be bald and have a nice beard and and be a gym owner.
Yes.
you know and that's the dream, right?
Yeah.
That's what ends up happening. You're bald and you got a really nice
Mm-hmm.
beard and a black belt, and
Got to have hair somewhere.
you got to serve, and the beard is, it's prominent beard.
Yours is fantastic, by the way. I've
Thank
been
you.
appreciating watching it grow.
But you know what I'm saying is that's kind of, it's a progress for everybody. I think the progress thing, like on one end is the progress, one end it's the folks that keep me together. And like I said, it's a marvelous sport. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I've done other sports, like I've done CrossFit,
Mm-hmm.
and I won't say anything bad about CrossFit, but I'll say that it's not. I would say my relationships to folks in like a CrossFit setting, not as deep,
Sure.
not as deep as a jiu-jitsu setting. And maybe that has something to do with us trying to kill each other.
Could be.
Maybe there's some chemical bonds going on. But I mean, I'm we're having late night conversation phone calls,
Mm-hmm.
with people that we know from
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I feel that. I come from triathlon. That's, Ironman and that whole thing, and never felt immersed in that sport or connected. I have my co-host for My Modern Myth is a Ironman world champion, a qualifier person. So he's elite, and took some time off of it. But he, out of all the people I met, he's the guy that we connect, because I found a guy who cares about self-development and growth and psychology and all the same things that I care about. But in triathlon, you're not really, there's not much trust. It's actually a very individual sport, and jiu-jitsu is a very individual sport. It's one-on-one, but in practice, in training, if I'm running by myself, I'm riding my bike by myself, I'm swimming by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll let you pass me, we'll share a lane. But in jiu-jitsu, it's the trust that we put in each other and the respect that garnishes. I think there's something sacred about that. And I say sacred whenever I found an experience that transcends the act of whatever we're doing, where there's something bigger there.
Right.
The lessons I've learned, it's so related to life, and, feeling that pressure of wanting to quit, but then being like, give it 5 more seconds and find space so you can breathe again, because you're afraid right now. Like it's such a great teacher. And I have tremendous respect for people who are at any level in the sport. And so it creates like this arena of men and women who, you have to have respect for each other. It's a dangerous thing. I mean, people do get really hurt if they're not
Mm.
careful. So the stakes are high, and
Yes,
I think that's part of it too.
absolutely. Yeah, the injuries for me. I mean, I've had some gnarly ones. I think one of the worst ones that I had early on was I was in full guard and I had gotten thrown backwards and I had landed on my thumb, this
Mm,
thumb right here,
mm.
and it was so bad I had to actually see like a therapist and everything for this, and I had pushed like this. They had to push it, tape it up on this end. I could not wiggle or move it, so it was just stuck like
Yeah.
this.
Oh, no.
It was so hard for me to do certain like labor things and
Yeah.
intensive jobs. But yeah, I had some gnarly ones, man. But then luckily, not everything heals perfectly, but some parts of the body will they get back. But that's a scary thing. Yeah, we're putting our lives in each other's hands. The competitions, the stakes are now raised. I even had another buddy of mine had told me, he was saying he's a black belt. He was talking about how when you're going to these higher level competitions, like the purple belts and the
Mm,
brown belts and the
right.
black belts, that the submissions, all these submissions that we practice, and it makes sense, all the submissions that we're practicing, when they come on, there's not like a let's say for us white belts, blue belts, that kind of thing. There might be a delay until
Oh,
when,
sure.
you
Yeah.
know, there's a little bit of a delay. It doesn't hit you right then and there.
You can scramble
You can
and find your
scramble,
way out.
right? He's saying for these higher level elite jiu-jitsu practitioners, for black belts and brown belts and purple belts, once it's on,
Yeah.
they're going. There's none of
Yeah.
this delay. That arm bar is coming, your arm's getting ripped off,
Hmm.
and that's a scary thought.
It is.
That's a scary thought. It makes me think about how much
Yeah.
juice do I got, how much gas do I got left in the tank for this.
Yeah. It's for real.
Yeah.
I think about that too. The enjoyment I'm getting out of it right now is the amount of progress I can make. The ceiling is so high, and also I've thought I would want to get progress and promotions, but I'm like so happy being a white belt
Mm.
because it means that I'm hey everyone, I'm new.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just here to not play, but I mean it is they that's what they call it. Like what's your game? How do you play jujitsu? And I'm like that's
Mm-hmm.
just a weird it's a weird concept to say like no, I'm fighting because it does
Mm.
feel like a fight to me.
It
When we
does.
go,
Right.
it feels like a fight, but it's a game, and that's where I'm trying to take my brain and understand the black belt how it is a game. Like when they go at it, the risk is so high that they can't just be rams rushing into combat like us
Right.
white belts, and
Right.
that's where people give us grief because we're just like spazzy, all in, and then you watch the high level guys, and it's kind of like grab here and then they
Uh-huh.
strike. They're
Right.
waiting. Or you got Ben who is just like rolling all over, and you're like, I don't even, we've never covered this position before.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what to do. He could have submitted you 17 times, but he's letting you play. And I rolled with a brown belt, and he offered me his arm in this
Mm.
position. I was in his guard, or I had him in my guard, and he had one arm like in position where if I knew what to do, I'm looking at it going, I'm supposed to do something with this.
Mhm.
What is it?
Yeah.
And then he took it away after 5 seconds because I was like, because I'm just stupid.
Yeah, and that's how it is in the beginning. I think it's kind of interesting. There'll be this thing, and it's not every guy does this at every school, but in my experience, I've had this a lot where you'll be training with a higher belt, probably a black belt, and they'll show you a sequence of finishes from
Mm,
one position. And they did that to me, So like they'll show you omoplata to a triangle to an armbar. They'll
mm,
show you in mid roll.
mm, mm,
I can
mhm.
do this to you and this to you
This-
and this to you, and you're just like, okay. And it's awesome, and you want to get to that point where you have the confidence, you have the belief in yourself, the ability to do it. um, some part of me also had even considered, I mean, this might be the extra level, and some folks might kind of agree with this, but just getting a mat space in your home,
Yeah.
maybe buying one of those dolls, one of those jiu-jitsu dolls, and putting a gi on it.
Shout
But
out, Paul.
yeah, Shay Paul,
Grappling with insanity.
grappling with insanity. If you have that, I mean, at least it gives you the ability to continuously
Yeah.
practice these things. Because, like a lot of us, if we're 9 to 5ers or maybe 10 to 3ers, whatever, whatever,
Hmm.
whatever shift you're working, but you might not have the time to always be able to come to class, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so if you have it at home and you're like, let me just try this. Maybe you had a
Yeah.
bad day at work. Let me just try this loop
Yeah.
choke real quick. You know,
Hello, John. Yes,
yeah,
from accounting.
yeah, exactly.
Dude, I think I've looked into that because of what you said,
Mm,
and because I have this program called, I think it's Jujitsu Flow. It's
mm,
essentially uh, a body weight exercise program that's rooted in jujitsu mobility movements. So there's all
mm,
these really cool warm up drills and exercises that are based on being able to do moves that would translate to jujitsu. And I'm like, oh, beyond shrimping and stuff,
right,
and to do it on the wood floors is fine, but I'm like, it would be a lot more fun to do these drills, the forward rolls and backwards roll, all these types of things, sprawling, if you had a mat space. So
right.
there's certain things that I think in building resiliency, which has been what I've realized. If I said one thing about my first year, which I'm still in jiu-jitsu,
Mm,
for me the word is resiliency, is building up my body to be able to handle 2 classes a week and
mm,
learning what I'm doing wrong. Because for me, I go too hard and I get tendonitis, and then I'm
mm,
off for, like, I can barely grip things for 3 days, and so now I'm doing 1 class a week and no classes a week. And then I got 2 in, and I went too hard again, so now I'm down to 1, and it's this kind of ebb and flow, and it's all on me. I could have swallowed that ego a little bit and just gotten beat by everybody.
mm,
But I'm going to set this up for you because there's all these mistakes that I've made, and I'm just curious if you have any that you have. But I'll explain one of mine
mm,
that I realized was when we're training, we would do this positional sparring, and the game is you are in De La Hiva, and your goal is to hold the top player in De La Hiva. If you're a
okay.
top player, your goal is to pass the guard and get into side control. So for me, in that moment, I realized for all this time I've been doing it, the game would have continued on if we were in a match. But for me, I'm winning or losing based on holding you in this one position, but
Mm,
then not embracing the fact that, well, if I can't hold it and I'm using all of my strength to keep you here, burning everything out, that was stupid because your technique wasn't good enough. You passed your guard, but then you would try to catch him in quarter guard or do something else, but the game is over. So I'm like playing it as if I need to win this.
mm.
And realizing that, I'm like, oh, if I get beat, I get beat in this moment. The game's not over truly, but I was treating it as it was. Like I just lost the gold medal.
I
So I
see.
don't
I
know if you
see.
have any lessons that you kind of hit where you're like, oh my God, I'm stupid, because I've been seeing it differently than it really is.
Yeah, I mean, I try to pay attention to what are they specifically asking of me. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe in a situation like that, for example, you're on the bottom of Delahiva and you're holding, maybe you're up by 2 points. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe you have to hold
Yeah.
to win that, and
Yeah.
the guy is aggressively trying to pass just so he can win. You got 2 more minutes to go and the match is
Mm-hmm.
almost over. And it's like, yeah, that's a stressful situation, but
Yeah.
you're winning. And I think for me, like in that situation, I always tried to have like, let me have a good guard retention. They try to pass my guard. Let me just try to retain. If I can just try to retain
Mm-hmm.
and have a guard and then stick to it, just be really sticky to them. But there are times where, like for example, I'll have a really good lockdown, a really good half guard game, and a lot of guys have a hard time getting out of my half guard. And I'm not trying to say that to brag. I have short little stubby leg locking legs,
Mm-hmm.
and when they get on you, it's really hard to get out. But I realize this is again oh man, I'm stupid, Eureka moment. I can't just stay there. I can't just stay in bottom half guard lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely comfortable. It's cozy down there, especially when you get into like a deep half guard game.
Mm.
You can just go right under them, and they're like a three-legged table. I mean, you can just roll them over. But it's a cozy game, but you can't stay. You can't lollygag. You have to go for it.
Yeah.
You got to get up. Either you're going to get up and step up and take them down, or you're going to sweep them, and then you're going to get your points. But that's one of the big ones for me. It's actually kind of a blemish, honestly, that I'm still working on, is to try and, like, I shout out to TJ and Matt and Andy for all helping me out with that bottom that
Mm.
bottom lockdown game. But it's, when you're in that type of position, going back and forth, left and right, switching and switching, and not just staying into a position where you're locked down. Because if you stay there, it's happened to me in comps. If you stay there, the guy who's on top didn't get points, but you pulled guard and now you're in bottom half guard lockdown, the guy on top's going to win because he was the aggressor and he got the advantage. And whether it's grappling industries or Naga, it doesn't really matter. As long as the guy has an advantage, if your shoulders were down on the mat, you don't look good. You have to go for an attempt. You have to
Yeah.
sweep them. You have to do something. And that's one of the biggest. That's a hurdle for me personally. Um, and that's definitely one for sure that I struggle with. It's like, man, it's cozy down there, but don't make it too cozy. You only got 5 minutes until
Yeah.
the match is done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, cozy. Again, one of my things that I love about jiu-jitsu and sport is this idea of what mirror in my life is my jiu-jitsu play holding up to me. And for me, it's quitting. Maybe for you, it might be getting cozy and getting comfortable and not wanting to leave comfort. And so, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it's very interesting when you start looking at it as a way to be like, oh man, I do this in my life too.
True.
And so when I'm training on the mat, I get to actively see that and then say, not this time. I'm not going to choose comfort. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to find what this is calling me to make an adjustment. And then that's why I go for pause, pivot, and then pursue the new path. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to frame. I'm going to shrimp out a little bit, and I'm going to pursue something new when I wanted to tap.
Right.
But no, just 5 more seconds. Let's figure it out. And so do you see that in your own life where
Absolutely.
you're like,
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. There's times in my life where same thing. I'll use the same word, cozy. Getting too cozy, getting too lackadaisical in a situation
Sure.
where I should have maybe put the gas more. Maybe I should have moved a little more. Maybe I should have pressured them into a situation where they had to react, or else I would get on top. And a lot of that, it's conditioning, it's cardio, it's dealing with yourself too, in the performance aspect of jiu-jitsu. In life, it's just being present, knowing what you can and cannot do in that position. And it could be business, it could be relationships,
Sure.
it could be love life, it could be how you deal with certain things. Recently, I mean, on a personal level, I've been, just redoing my whole living space. I got a brand new bed, and that had it's so simple. It's such a simple thing, like, oh, bed.
Yeah.
But before, I was just sleeping on a mattress on the ground. Like, oh, I'm gonna lug it. I'm a warrior. I can sleep on the ground. My shoulders are all sore from sleeping on the ground on a twin XL on the ground, and I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? And then that could be me. That could be Billy sitting in lockdown. Well, I have the comfort of I don't need to buy a bed. I have a bed, and I'll just whatever. Now I have a queen size mattress, beautiful mattress up on a base, and it looks nice and it's clean. It's got all this fancy stuff that I bought from Amazon, and I love it. And that's me. That could be me moving, into a better position. So it's like those type of things. It's the small little things, the small little adjustments. It's not staying in one spot. Another thing too, and I'll do a shout out for Andy on this one, but what I've noticed, like passing guard, for example, when you're passing someone's guard and they're on their back, we like to kind of pressure. I think naturally, maybe just me, but I like to kind of pressure into one place and then try to attack that one area. But it's something really interesting is like when you're trying to attack that one area and then all of a sudden you switch gears and go to the other side, they have to react now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they have to. That's kind of the beauty of this sport is that you can do something and you can keep doing that thing and try to really pressure and get your point across, or you can completely switch and do like a 180 on them. And they're like, "Oh, well, you weren't doing that 5 seconds ago."
Easy, fella.
So that's what I like about it, and that's how you can be in life too, though. That can also be in life because maybe in life, in our 9 to 5 life, maybe sometimes we might feel like we're kind of burnt out. We do the same thing over and over. It's the mundane. It's the Monday. It's the Tuesday. It's the Wednesday. It's the Thursday. But what if we just do something crazy on a Wednesday? What if we go get out of our comfort zone? What if we go to that nature trail? We never go there, but we talk about it all the time. It's that kind of thing where, what if I do take this sharp turn, and I do something super kind of adventurous in my life? It's the same. It's the same thing, I think.
Yeah, lockdown is comfort.
Yeah.
Growth and
Yeah.
change is no guarantee, but at least you know you're safe down there.
Like I said,
I know this pain. I
yeah.
don't know what the pain of change is going to bring me, but oh shoot, it was actually beautiful.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
No, I love it, and that's where I just really want to encourage people to reflect differently on their experience with sport. It's how we use our mind within that sport. It also rewrites that life story. It can change the way we connect to a sport that's really difficult, like jujitsu, but incredibly rewarding. Like you can maintain longevity, you can have a healthy body. I remember someone telling me if you're lifting weights and you're not doing it for a reason, if you're just jogging and you have no reason, there's no sport, there's no action that's being taken,
Mm.
what are you doing it for? And so, I had a guy who told me this. He went into a bodybuilding competition. So I'm lifting all these weights. I might as well do something with it. And that changed his connection with it. And I was like, that's a good point. I'm going to start jujitsu. So I began to train my body because last time I did it, and this is my next point, is getting into gym culture as a beginner. I went to a gym and had never trained before in Kentucky, and it was like I call it a bully gym. It's not fair to say, but that's the word that comes to mind because it was super MMA. I
Yeah.
mean, the cage is there. Everyone is a competitive fighter, and here comes this little skinny triathlete, and just smashed me.
Mhm.
Everyone smashed me. I couldn't do anything. I didn't know what to do. Purple belt's holding me in guard, like bored.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you want? I don't know anything about this position, and you're freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And my wife's there watching, and this big heavyweights. He's in my guard to start, and I can't sweep him. He just is smothering me. He pulls my gi up over my head and is choking me and smothering and my wife is watching, and I'm just
Yeah.
horribly embarrassed. It was a crappy experience. I went a couple times. There was really nice people. There was a couple really nice people. I got to roll with the purple belt's girlfriend, who was also a purple belt, I believe. That was fun, because she taught me how when she beat me was I just knew I had to outlast you, and then you would make a mistake and I could submit you or whatever, and she did.
Mm.
And she was really humble and cool about it. But in that 2 or 3 classes that I went in, I dislocated a rib
Ooh.
because my muscles weren't strong enough to hold my skeleton together for the demand, because I was triathlon. This is not a muscle building sport, and then you're grappling. And so then I got on a TV show for Ironman, so then I was like, I can't risk it, so I just didn't do it again. And then it gets me to this point where train your body for a purpose. Well, I want to get strong so I can handle jujitsu. Well, that's my purpose. That's why I'm training. And so I built up my body to a point, and then I went to jujitsu, and I went to a school, and I went to 2 schools and didn't dislike them, but it didn't feel like at home. And then I went to Freeform and didn't want to because I had heard it was like the best gym in Milwaukee, but it was super competitive, like really focused on competition. And I'm like, I can't, because I'm thinking MMA bully gym, And then I go there and I'm like, this is Matt, the brown belt coach, walked up and shook my hand, showed me the bathroom, showed me the changing room, and then Alex was there, and he, hey, you're new, you want to partner with me? And he, because I was afraid to talk to anybody, honestly, not good in those situations. He pulled me on the mat, and it felt like I was welcomed. I was nervous, but then I was like, this is what I was missing, because the last gyms I went to, there was some ego about like the blue belt was like, usually it's the white belt's responsibility to move. They get too close to the blue belts, but whatever. And I was like, easy lady, like calm down. Like you're standing there, we're rolling. It's the end of the day. Like I'm not here for that hierarchy stuff. I'm respectful. Okay. I am not going to disrespect you. But I can't do anything in this case because this guy's a super heavyweight, and I'm on the bottom, and he's throwing me across the mat this way.
Right.
You go, sorry, white belt brain, whatever. But what I want to ask you is, have you seen, not that any of them are necessarily bad, there certainly are ones that can be unhealthy, but have you seen in going to multiple different gyms that there's certain criteria that you find when you're looking for a new gym that you're like, yes, I see the energy I want, the people I want, the coaching style I want? What things are you looking at for a good gym for you?
So for sure for me, because when I first came to Milwaukee and I went to Nutriground, I did the old, let me just go with Nutriground and see what happens. And Nutriground is a good gym. It's a great gym. Very, open and creative, kind of like come as you are type of energy. Camaraderie is good. Freeform was like the next level for competition. They're like,
Hmm.
just like what you said, they're ready for competition. They're very serious, very technical about gi stuff. So I was like, ooh, this is the
Yeah.
next level for me, you know. And for me personally, what I look for, so it's got to be, I look at a bunch of things. I look at, is the gym clean? That's what. That's the
Yes,
one.
sure.
There's no cobwebs, no spiders. Is the gym clean?
Just nose
That's
hairs on the
nose
mat.
hairs, nose clippings, anything like that. It's clean. It's a clean gym. How does the building look? Is it an older building? Where are they located? Are they located within reach of me? All of these are important.
Hmm.
And then the culture of the gym. What kind of folks go there? Are they more of like are they more like young 20-year-old kids? For example, you go to Primal, a lot of 20-year-old guys, a lot of young, just hungry athletes in there,
Yeah.
ready to rip your shoulders off. Or is it more guys more my age? Mid to late, mid to 20s to mid 30s. Somewhere in there, somewhere in that range, maybe later to 30s. Then there's a certain kind of like, oh, we work, we have jobs, and we do this, and we have kids, and we have that, and there's that energy. Or is it a bunch of everybody, just kind of all over the place? So it's like I look at the culture, I look at the folks that go there. Um, I look at the techniques that are being shown. Is it something that I already know? Or are you already showing me like an Americana from Side Control? Because if it's a basic Americana, I know that. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? If this is like a ABC's jiu-jitsu class, then I'm not really benefiting. And I don't mean to sound like a jerk saying that. I'm just saying like I need to have something that's with technique and a structure, and I'm learning. I do love more militant learning. Like I like something that has a curriculum, and it's more like, hey, we're doing armbar stuff this week, and then next week we do something that somehow relates to armbar stuff.
Hmm.
Like we'll be doing triangle, but you can get the armbar from the triangle
Right.
position. So it's like, oh, okay. So and they'll be from this position or that position. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like that. So I do like a curriculum. That's not to say that chaotic, sporadic training where this guy 1 week we're learning wrist locks and the other week we're in guillotines and next week we're doing knee bars, and that's not to say that that's bad, but it's a little more chaotic and it's hard to maybe you pick up stuff that's different all over the place. It's more of a smorgasbord type of learning style.
Yeah.
But I prefer to have more of a curriculum and kind of a school approach to it, because then at that point I'm like, oh, I can track this, I can write this down. It
Hmm.
helps me think about it. It helps me order it in my brain, compartmentalize it in my brain. And the coaches, do the coaches look at you? Do the coaches
Mm.
actually take note
Yeah.
of your training? Do they give you tips? Do they talk to you, or are you being overlooked? If you go to you know what I mean. If you go to a school where it's like 300 people, and they're all white
Yeah.
belts and blue belts, it's hard. You and Larry and Tim and John and Susie all look the same.
Yep.
But if you have a relationship with your coaches and they're talking to you and they're saying, "Hey, Billy, I really like the wrestling stuff you're doing. Not really liking the execution on the wrestling stuff. You're not really going for the takedown, but I like that you're trying to like like you're grabbing a leg, you're getting to it, but you're not committing to it. So I like those type of, they're giving me specific details and they're
Hmm.
encouraging me. That stuff. I mean, that's why I keep going to freeform, because they will tell you. They will tell you. It's constructive criticism, of course. It doesn't
Yeah.
hurt too much, but I like to have, let me know what's going on. How can I be better? So yeah, I would say people, the cleanliness of the gym, the quality of your coaches, the quality of the content that you're learning, all these things kind of come together. Plus location, location, location. Because
Hmm.
let's be honest, I'm not going to drive 45 minutes to go do jujitsu.
Yeah.
I'm too lazy. I'm a very lazy person. I'm an extremely lazy person. So I want jujitsu to be 15 minutes at most. You know what I mean? But if I'm crazy enough, like I will drive an hour to go do a competition. That's a
Sure.
competition. But
Yes. Yeah.
every day drive an
Hmm.
hour,
No.
I want it to be as close as possible. That's how my brain works. I'm more
Yep.
likely to go to jujitsu every single day if it's extremely close to me than to you know go at a short distance or like a far distance or something.
Oh yeah. I'm in that same boat. Like I miss freeform, but it was 35 minutes to get there,
Mm.
and I'm going to Gold Star now, which is 10 minutes from my house,
Well, there you
and
go.
it has a judo floor, which has springs. So when I get taken down or we do takedowns, my back is just like in splendor, much like you getting a bed with a frame.
Yes,
It's the
yes,
same thing.
yes. I can
But
imagine.
it wouldn't have worked if the people there weren't the people I jibed with, and I'm really grateful that that's the case because I what you said about coaching. The first gym I went to, coach didn't even talk to me the entire time. There
Yeah,
was an assistant that was running the desk. She helped me get prepared and she checked in on me. So how's it going? And I kind of sat out because you're doing rolling at the end of the class, and I'm like, did 2 rolls with people on my first night, and then I was like, I might throw up. So I
yeah,
sat down on the thing and she came over. I appreciated it, but the coach looked at me one time, didn't shake my hand, didn't acknowledge my presence, didn't say hi, nothing. And it just felt really weird. He walked with his hands behind his back, like
professor,
freaking, yeah, exactly. And I remember Matt saying that, like, if you ever walk into a gym and they're like, Professor, you
professor.
will call me Professor, and like
Yeah,
walk away, and I get that. And that's not my vibe. But when I look at that, I'm not looking at this conversation to say who is bad, who is good. I do think there are bad gyms out there, but
absolutely.
I think the other piece was Matt and Ben were competitors, or are competitors, I should say.
Mm.
So it's also good to know that they're taking techniques and they're successful in application of it. You can do a hobbyist gym, I think, and just do it as an
Mhm.
exercise sort of a thing, but you just need to be really clear and understanding that this is not designed to make you go out to the campfire and be like, well, I'm actually a purple belt.
Right,
You're not really. Okay.
right.
So if you're careful with what you say, so understand what you're doing, I think, and what you want. And then you're okay. I had a gym where I was living before that I could go back after one class and probably beat most of their blue belts because it was a very hobbyist friendly, nice environment, but it wasn't freeform. You take freeform and they would do a gym storm and be like, I'm destroying you,
Yeah,
because that's not what their focus was, and that's fine. You just have to be really clear on what you want and not judge it on one experience. Like, oh, jujitsu is this. It's not free form. It's not neutral ground. It's not uh, gold star. It's not killer bees. It's not any of these
mhm.
gyms. That's just one flavor of ice cream, and jujitsu
Right.
is the ice cream. And you got to figure out what you want and go get it. And explore.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. I think that definitely touching on what you're saying, there's definitely a gym for somebody out there. Everybody has a type of gym. Um, just try not to get involved with a gym that's toxic. I won't
Yeah.
say the name of the gym, but there's a gym that I know of that would not let its members go to other gyms because
Mm-hmm.
of whatever whatever
Yeah.
jealousy. But to me, that's insane. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, I'm a customer. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm coming here to pay a membership and learn the art, and I should be able to go. I should be able to go to Primal. I should be able to go to Newsground. I should be able to go to Gold Star, Freeform. I should be able to go anywhere I
Yeah.
want to go, and mingle with some other practitioners and see where I fall, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe make some friends, you
Yeah.
know, or some friendly enemies, maybe some frenemies, But
Mm-hmm.
but other than that, I mean, I think that yeah, I'm not really down with the whole professor thing. I'm not really down with the whole like the strict curriculum, like oh, it's gotta be you gotta have a tailor made gi. Like I'm showing up with
Mm.
gis that have holes in them sometimes because they're old. I mean, I'll buy new gis, but I have that kind of like whatever, man. We're here to just roll. Let's just roll. Let's just do some jujitsu. Who cares that there's blood on this? I don't care. We're rolling. Like
To that point too, the gym culture is one thing, but then you're also going to find within that gym culture, you're going to find people that you identify more with than others too,
yes.
and that's also not a bad thing. It's a necessary thing in some regards because you have 30 people. Well, it's great if you have a group of like 3 or 4 that are at this speed, and you have 5 or 6 that are at this speed because
Mm-hmm.
I felt guilty when if I was partnered up with someone who is about to become a blue belt or is a blue belt, or, and I'm like, I had the same thing in triathlon where my professional friends would invite me out for a ride, and I'm like, bro, you guys average like 25 miles an hour on your bikes. I'm like 16 to 18.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hold you back. And then they would say, oh, no, this is like a rest ride, recovery ride for me. So you're not holding me back. And I didn't believe that until I got a small level of skill and progress, and then got to go with brand new people, and then realized that me getting beat all the time or me struggling all the time was making me better, because then you'd go with someone who has never done it before and you're like, oh, I'm very safe here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to have that reflection of like, okay, I have learned. And so if you're always getting beat by people, it's tough, I think, to stay motivated, because
Yes.
you don't see, because that person's always getting better incrementally just with you, so they're always this much better than you. And then you go with someone who is just fresh off the street and doesn't know what they're doing or whatever, and you're like, I am controlling you right now, I'm putting very little effort into this. And that's very rare for me, still.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm grateful for it, because then I'm like, okay, chill. You're okay. You are making progress. It's just you're training with people who are really good, and so they're going to get the best of you, and that's a
True.
good thing. That's make you better.
100% true. I used to have that too. I've been on both sides of it actually. Where first starting out, brand new spazzy white belt, freaking out about everything. Oh, I don't, you know, I don't like this move. And I've clocked people in the face, and
Yeah.
I've elbowed them, and I've headbutt them, and I feel guilty about all that stuff, and I always apologize profusely, and I always feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes I tell them like, hey, I don't want to slow you down if you're trying to do a competition or something. Like, oh no, let's go through it. And then even now, I'm a more seasoned white belt, 4 stripe white belt, but I'll roll with somebody who's brand new, or somebody who's like maybe they've only been doing it for 6 months or a year or whatever it is, and they might not know all these types of things that I know, and I'll roll with them, and they'll be like, "Hey, I don't want you to feel like this and that." I'm like, "No, man, this is we're. I'm always getting something out of this. I'm always getting something out of jiu-jitsu. Whether I'm on top, I'm getting something out of it. If I'm on bottom and I'm trying to defend, I'm getting something. If someone is worse than you,
Mm-hmm.
you're rolling with them. You just roll. You don't have to go Delta 9 hardcore
Yes, you
ADCC. You could if you want, and there's nothing wrong with that. You could, but also it's also nice to just have a good roll.
Yeah.
Just have a good freaking roll and get in there. And I mean, my favorite thing, honestly, if I can just if it's a particularly like I'm a beat up day, like this day I'm my ass got kicked, I'm done, I'm tired. If I can just sweep a couple people, get on top,
Mm.
and just get to a good position, I feel like all right,
Yeah.
I did something.
Exactly.
There's those days, there's those days where you get a sweep on somebody, you get to a good position, you get to a mount, and you're like, I'm here, I'm
Yeah.
here, and I got this. And once that buzzer goes off, that water is going to taste even better
Yes.
going down.
Yes. Bro, I've done it to that level where I can't leave the mat without finding one positive thing.
Mhm.
And it got so granular to me that we were doing something and we're in a tie up, or he's on the ground. I get him down or something, and he goes for my ankle. And I realized my foot was out there, and I pulled it away just when the hand came to swipe and do an ankle pick.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Guess who's getting promoted today?
Yeah. Well, it's
Like,
good to have. It's good to have those celebrations. It's good to
yeah.
have that because it's so fun. It's such a fun
Mm-hmm.
sport because of those ankle picks, for example. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a guy in my gym who tries to always get me with ankle picks. Jared, he loves going for those ankle picks, and if you can push him down, you get to a good. Oh, hey, gonna get me today on that ankle pick. But it feels amazing. I think for me, this is me as speaking as a guy who I have the body for wrestling. I'm short, stocky,
Mm-hmm.
perfect. That's ideal wrestler. People call me the fire hydrant or whatever. I've never wrestled a day in my life. Didn't go to high school wrestling. Didn't do any of that. But I'm not a wrestler. If somebody tries to do like a double leg takedown on me, they try to double blast me, and I'm quick enough to sprawl on
Mm-hmm.
them and then just hold them down with my big belly and just plop on
Yeah.
them and then switch over and get their back. That is the nectar
Yeah.
of my life. I love that feeling so much. Like I've done that too. There was a dude in my last competition when I went to Grappling Industries. He tried to do that. He tried to like double blast me, and I actually had spun around him and got to the back, and I couldn't complete the choke because he was really slippery and this was
Mm.
nogi. But man, just the fact that I could do that in crunch time during
Yeah.
competition, that's the beauty of that. It's like you got to have those celebrations for those moves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not an over celebration. It's just a moment, like it,
Mm.
but it's still fond memory. Like it's still
Oh yeah.
it's not Napoleon Dynamite talking about, yeah, back in my day I could throw a football over those mountains over there. I was in my prime. It's not that, but like you have to stay connected to those because it's a really hard sport. It's a long journey. I mean, I don't know how long it takes to get to black belt, but it's not 6 years.
No.
It's not karate where you can get it that quickly, because it's not really about that.
Mm.
It's a very nuanced sport and it's very complicated. And moving my foot out of the way is something that becomes muscle memory. You're not thinking about it, like, so it has to be so ingrained in you at this time that you have to it takes time for that to happen. And you need to celebrate the smallest things because, man, when I sweep someone without any effort,
Hmm.
that's my nectar.
Oh yeah.
Because you can sweep, but you realize you're putting too much effort, but then you get them that perfect bounce and you're like, oh, I just rolled on top of you.
Yeah.
Like, what? That was it. And I don't know what to do after that. But I'm like, that's awesome.
Same thing Matt said. Get on top, stay on top.
Yep.
We're
here now.
They're here now. But I mean, it's a great feeling, and I think the thing is that really it is the long view. It is the consistency of it. I do something in me. I've kind of realized this more now than anything else with my life is it's also you're developing as a person as well. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's a big thing about jiu-jitsu. It's like and on and off the mats, you're developing. I will say jiu-jitsu, it's cliche to say it saves your life kind of thing. A lot of people say that, but I will say that it's definitely calibrated my life. I can say
Mm-hmm.
those words for sure. It's
Mm-hmm.
calibrated me because when I was a young man, I'm still kind of young, but really young. When I was in my early 20s, I was very angry. I was full of rage, full of just want to break stuff, punch holes in walls. And now at 30, I maybe with age, but also with jiu-jitsu, I think it's kind of like the more you fight, the less you want to fight,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of like there's like a serene calmness to me where I'm not little first world problems that happen, inconveniences that would sometimes just piss off most people. I'm like, yeah, okay, they messed up my order. Like, well, whatever, you know,
We're
like
gonna be okay.
we're gonna be fine. But other people will lose their mind,
Yeah.
like that. No, this is my frappuccino. But like,
Mm.
it's like those type of things. It's like, or even if you have like, and I hope you never do, but you have an altercation with a person. Now you have this in your tool shed. You're like, I know what I could do if I needed to get into the situation. And the thing is, you don't have to. You don't have this thing that's like this ego, like, well, what do you mean? Don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
You don't have that as much. You're kind of like, hey, man, let's let's chill out here. I had a situation real quick. I'll tell you. Um, I was at a bar. This is about a year ago. I had a guy come up to me, and I was hanging out with the guys. This was back in the neutral ground days, and I was hanging out with a guy, and this guy came up to me. He was a Taekwondo guy, and he kicks off his shoes, and he's like, "You guys do jujitsu?" And he like kicks his shoes off. And he's like, "I'm Taekwondo. I'm #1 champion." He was wasted, and, and and I come up to him and I just hug him.
It's beautiful.
And I said, "Hey, man, I hope you have a good night tonight." And I think he realized what I was saying to him. I was saying like, I don't think you know the conversation here. Like from far away, you got me, but I'm right next to you.
Yeah. This is what we do. We hug aggressively.
So, but he was as humble as pie after that. He was calm.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, it's like those situations to de-escalate it.
Yeah.
Put some humor in there. Always be funny if you can be funny. Be your funny self.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I encourage. And if you get it out, you don't have to be like, you don't have to have that. That gets out of there.
I agree. I think, one anecdote that I've realized in my reflections is since I've been sober for 7 years, I haven't gotten into a fight. So I've reduced my fights by 100% by getting sober and not going to the bars. And like last night at the block party, this guy was drunk at the fire and just looked at me and he said, "You look like a guy I want to fight." And I'm like, I've had that told to me 3 times in my life,
Yeah.
and I don't understand why, but the army trained me to be okay. I don't like fighting, but I
Mm,
know how to handle myself. And jujitsu has further done that. And the reason, to your point, like the frappuccino, we as human beings are wired for conflict. We're wired to fight,
yeah.
but most of us have such nice lives that we end up creating fights where they aren't. So we
Mm,
might think of a word, or you called me sir or ma'am, and that's like, ooh,
yeah. Hey.
how dare
Hey.
you, and I'm
Yeah.
like, but because you want to fight. So go into jujitsu, you get to fight, but you
Yeah.
get to do it in a controlled, you don't realize you're doing it, but you're finally giving your body something it needs, which is actual danger, actual conflict, but in a really safe way where we're not doing this on concrete. We're not drunk.
Uh-huh.
We're not going to, I haven't seen, but I know people that have died in bar fights after one punch.
Right.
We're
It
not
happens.
punching. It just stuff happens. We're grappling, and that's why my wife is cool with me doing it, because I wanted to be. When in second grade, we went around the class, and what do you want to be when you grow up? And in second grade in 1991, I was like, I want to be the ultimate fighting champion.
Oh yeah.
Because I like wanted to. And my teacher in the class is like, what the hell did you do? Because that was like UFC 2 or whatever
Yeah.
was just coming
Yeah.
out. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's my dream, and I obviously never did anything like that, but that's what I wanted to be. And I
Mm,
have a TBI from the army, and my wife's like, you're not boxing, you're not doing this stuff to risk the injury.
right.
So jiu-jitsu was like an agreeable thing, so I could go out and fight, still be some of that UFC energy, and get
Yeah.
into that fight, but have a little less reduction where it's not kicking and it's not kneeing and stuff happens. I still have been kneed in the head plenty of times,
Right.
like slapped and whatever, but it's a lot safer in
Yes.
its violence.
Yes. And you have still have that. You're satisfying that child within. You
Yeah,
know, the child
exactly.
within you wants to be that UFC fighter. The child within me, when I was a kid, I've watched a lot of media. When I grew up, I was a big nerd, so I loved anime, wrestling, video
Mm-hmm.
games,
Yep.
music, all kinds of stuff. So I used to watch wrestling, professional wrestling, and I would be like, the characters are so crazy. But
Yeah.
one of the things I used to like was a trope in professional wrestling is a guy would be wounded or injured, and he would still come out to the ring and
Yeah.
still wrestle. I still have that in my head, like as
Mm.
a child to now. I'm like, well, I'm a little beat up, but I could still compete. Like it's like that little craziness in the
Yeah.
head where I'm sort of trying to satisfy that child within, where I'm
Mm.
saying I might be a little broken, I might be a little damaged,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna just rip this person's head off, and that could be me. I always tried to put the word warrior over it because it's a vast word.
Mm-hmm.
It could mean warrior, could mean everything.
Yeah.
Warrior, you can be a monk and still be a warrior. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And so I look at it and I'm like, I never looked at myself as like UFC fighter, although I think I would totally do a cage fight just as a one off, just
Just
as a just as a one off, ideally with headgear, maybe,
yeah.
safe, maybe no head punching
Something.
because I can't afford the head punches, let's be honest.
Yeah. Same.
But if it's a pancration,
Mm.
if it's a pancration match, exhibition, somebody at my level,
Yeah. Masters division
Masters
pancreas.
Division pancration. Hey, we're just gonna have a fun time,
Yeah.
But nothing too like. Don't throw me in there with a 27-year-old
Yeah.
kid
No.
who's just feisty and ready to kill me.
I'm gonna go pro.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I have no intention for that at all.
Yeah. That's good. Set your intention. Well, I think that's going to end it for today for this one.
Mm,
But there's a lot of good stuff in there, and if I could echo one thing, it's this sport specifically. Like I say, you can do this in any sport. You can find it, but it's really reflecting with like-minded people. That's why I had you on the show, is we've had conversations and we align a lot on,
mm,
life in certain ways and wanting the most out of it, but also reflecting on it, not in a negative way where it's like, oh, pity me, I had a hard life, or, I'm a victim and I can't control it. And,
mm,
like it's about empowering yourself through reality. And jujitsu is one of the most effective tools I've found, and it's different for everybody, but I wish I could say it's for everybody, but I think a lot of people don't give themselves a fair chance to
mm,
find out if it is. It's getting in there. It's saying, Hey, how's it going? Oh, this is amazing. I love it. I'm just getting my ass kicked. And I'm like, ooh, that's not a great sign if it's your second class.
Mm,
If you're flop sweating and you can't breathe, it's probably not going to last more than a week or two. So it's like, man, if you could just figure out how to swallow the ego, go easier and just feel the vibe of the gym, feel the friendships and feel those things and fall in love with that versus the, oh man, this is hardcore. Because I've learned that my lesson of, I love the hardcore, I love to go crazy and burn out, but that's not sustainable. There's a heavy price, and
hmm
sometimes that price costs you a sport that would have been a lifelong empowering force for you, and you've got to figure out how to make it work in your life. And I know, Billy, you've done that, I've done that, and I'm trying to do that and trying to help other people do that. So thanks for joining me today and
Yeah.
having an initial discussion. I'm sure we'll have you back for some more rest round editions of My Modern Myth if you're down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, then we'll end it like this, like we always do. Till next time, journey well, my friends, and as always, bye.
See ya. Nice.